harm, are there any contraindications that we need to be concerned about?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Let's take the easy one first. Well, they're both actually pretty easy to answer, but let's talk about when someone has a organ transplant and they're specifically on drugs to suppress immune activity. This would be a pretty clear case where we would say we could not recommend the use of X39 or any of our other patches at this time. We haven't conducted any research with a population like this, and so we really don't know how the body would respond. We can create a hypothesis, but I would say there could be a substantial risk of trying to improve the immune response with someone that has had an organ transplant. So I would have to advise against it in the absence of any type of clinical or scientific studies. Now, on the other hand, when we're talking about a autoimmune disorder, we have, in fact, studied in hospitals osteoarthritis, our Icewave patch and our Eon patch. We conducted this study with Dr. Pierre Volkmann at General de Santé in Lyon, France. And that was a really fun experience because in the demonstration, many of the French scientists and doctors that I've met over the years are quite skeptical. They're great people, but they tend to be a little skeptical. And they gave me 32 patients to patch within about a period of an hour, and 32 out of 32 people got out of pain. And they said, okay, it seems there's something here. Let's go ahead and do the clinical study, which we did. And the clinical study was a little bit limiting in the parameters, but we still got, I think it was 96% of the people that participated got pain relief. So, and that was in a population of people that had osteoarthritis. So as a practical matter, over the years, we have worked with people that have Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, Epstein-Barr, and this would be in an anecdotal case. We've studied osteoarthritis clinically, but things like Parkinson's we have not studied clinically. This is just practical experience. And in each particular case, we see that the person's symptoms improve. So we're not making a claim of disease treatment. We're talking about pain management and management of symptoms. So one of the ways that we could characterize disease is through the inflammatory response and the response that the body has to oxidative stress and inflammatory markers. So we know that when an injury occurs, that the production of oxidative chemicals and inflammation at the injury site is quite necessary because this response will help to suppress bacterial infection. The inflammatory response is going to actually initiate healing, and eventually the stem cells are attracted over into the site. But as time goes by and the communication system in the cell begins to break down, now the inflammation is going to accumulate, and as the inflammation accumulates, it makes it very difficult to heal, and now immune cells can attack healthy tissue, you know, just as an example. So what do we do then to resolve this issue and resolve this disorder without having to resort to drugs or traditional anti-inflammatories? Well, what we want to do is normalize and manage the oxidative response and the inflammatory response. So with X39, the two of the products we have are X39 and Eon, and they're going to do this in very different ways. With X39, it occurs through gene expression. So as we age, there are going to be genes that are off and then turn on, and then the opposite, genes that are on and then they turn off. And part of what we want to accomplish with age reversal, which is really the goal of this company, what we ultimately want to reach, part of this is in epigenetics, where we want to continue to introduce new and powerful gene modulators that can reset the human genome back to a younger, healthier state. So if we take this approach, there's no reason why somebody couldn't be effectively 25. And as long as they could maintain other aspects of their health. But one of the things that's been discovered about copper peptide is that in resetting the genes, we manage inflammation and we also manage the immune response. So not surprisingly, when we've studied X39, we see a improvement in the health of the gut. So, and of course also a improvement in the thymus. So the immune system does in fact improve. With Eon, it works a little bit differently, or actually significantly differently. The Eon patch is designed to elevate a peptide in the liver called phenylacetylglutamine. And I don't often really talk about this because it's just a little bit of noise to our members. But since you're all doctors, I can get into this a little bit more detail. But this peptide specifically is very interesting because it's part of the primitive immune system. And although it's not an antioxidant, it will induce antioxidant activities in the cell. So it will upregulate production of SOD. And as a result, you see broad spectrum reduction of different types of inflammatory markers, such as CRPs, inflammatory cytokines, homocysteine, lipid peroxide, fibrinogen. And so this is another reason why clinically X39 and Eon are so powerful. You have a patient with a chronic injury, apply Eon to the site of the injury for pain management, reduction in inflammation, and it actually makes X39 work that much better.
Wow, that's fantastic. I appreciate that detail. I have just a little bit of a follow-up question on the same lines. Over the last 8 months, I've seen people have huge life-altering benefit in just a few days. 4 or 5 days. And it sounds like they're telling me about a dream they had. And look at them, this person wouldn't lie to me. I believe them and I see it. Yet others take a little longer. And some people I've talked to, that they might have been on the patch for 2 or 3 months and they say they didn't notice much. Now, I know, and everybody knows that unless you have something that you can measure, you're not going to feel your liver regenerating or your bones getting more density in them. So we don't know that. Could you explain some of the reasons why some people respond so quickly and others maybe take months? I know I wasn't one of those people who had this huge shift. It took 2 months and then 4.5 months for me to get it. So I understand that, and I can convey that to people that I talk to. But others, it's a little bit difficult if it's your dad, and your dad wants his back pain, the severely degenerated discs that are bulging and spurs are pushing on the nerves, but he wants that pain to go away tomorrow. And sometimes it gets a little frustrating as a rep that if it doesn't happen as quickly. So if you could give us the guidance, that would be very helpful, I believe.
Yeah, certainly. Sometimes the solution is simple, and then other times it's a little bit more complex. One of the things that I encourage and the company encourages is for people to build up their foundation. So in other words, you do a self-check, or of course, as doctors, you encourage your patients to have a healthy diet, supplement where needed, get adequate amounts of sleep, exercise, get resistance training, get plenty of good clean water, and stay away from things that we know are harmful, like excessive amounts of alcohol and cigarettes and drugs. So I think an individual needs to take that self-assessment, because the more areas that we can fill in and improve are better chances for success. So in some cases, you mentioned bulging discs. So this is going to be, more than likely a chronic injury. I would use a combination of Eon, Icewave, and X39. So I would use the Icewave patches for immediate pain relief. I would use Eon for reducing the inflammation, and then I would use X39 for the long-term benefit. So I think what we find as a practical matter is that in many individuals, X39 by itself is fine, but some individuals, especially those with chronic injuries, will benefit more if they use the Eon patch, reduce the inflammation, and now the stem cells can get in there and do a more efficient job. Now, sometimes we look at energetic mechanisms. So we go back to the roots of acupuncture and say, well, acupuncture is all about using the meridian system as a communication system. And why is it that sometimes the nervous system and the meridian system fails? And that's from deficiencies in electrolytes, which maintain those channels. So when people have deficiencies in magnesium, potassium, calcium, this can all impact their results. As we know, at least 60% of the population have magnesium deficiencies, and magnesium participates in over 300 different biochemical pathways in the body, as well as acting as a electrolyte. So these would be the type of things that people should take a look at. Are they really covering the basics? Could they have a nutritional deficiency? Is it chronic inflammation? And the good news is that there's answers to all of these things. We just need to find out for each individual what's going to work best for them.
So you need to cover the foundational things that will affect your body's ability to even heal. And that would explain why some people don't respond quickly. I think Savvy has a follow-up question. Is that correct, Savvy?
Yeah, he had me fired up. One of the things that I loved about him when I first saw him ever speak, he didn't just talk about light frequency patches. He talked about minerals, herbs, vitamins, and I was like, okay, this fella has it all. Okay, he's singing my song, in other words, right? And so working as a detox guy, you find out almost everybody has a messed up gut. And when I started looking at the X39 and GHK copper peptides boost collagen, the glue in the body, and works directly on repairing gut tissue. And lung tissue seems to be a big deal with GHK copper peptides. So we have these COPD people in our group doing much, much better. And then we have folks that were nutrient deficient. And so whenever I come across somebody who says, it happened in 2 days for this guy, 2 months for this guy, 6 months for this guy, I always go where the variables are in line with nutrient bucket and toxicity bucket, right? And so we're all the same, but we're all different with nutrients and toxicity. And so that's where the minerals come into play, right? So, you know, I used to work with Dr. Wallach for a while, and he's the mineral doctor, right? And so he says out of his 90 essential nutrients, 60 are minerals, and they're not really in the food anymore. So you kind of have to supplement with plant-derived minerals. And then we know that vitamin C is intimately involved with collagen production. And vitamin C is really effective at helping the adrenal glands. So when he said that, that resonates with me. And just to make you feel good, David, when we get just back to the autoimmune conditions, recently we had a gal named Rose with 60 years rheumatoid arthritis and other problems. She tried everything, including stem cell injections and IV drips, tens of thousands of dollars. And in 18 days, okay, that's fast, with rheumatoid arthritis, 18 days out of pain. And when she did her testimonial, she was already 218 days in and still pain-free from a magical little Band-Aid. So
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Just say that.
It is.
Yes, thank you.
Well, my next question has to do with the process called apoptosis. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's programmed cellular death. The body seeks and destroys 50 to 70 billion cells a day because they're old, they're sick, they're dying, and it needs to recycle them. So my question, David, is, do you think when all of a sudden the body has these stem cells and it sees an opening? I mean, there's a lot of wisdom going on there, infinite intelligent wisdom. This is something that I've thought might happen, and explain why some people, all of a sudden, some weeks or months down the road, they go through this process where they feel worse temporarily and feel flu-like symptoms. And we've talked about detoxing and those kind of things, but do you think maybe when the body sees an opening that it might destroy more because, hey, I can make better cells now? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, what I think about it is that the subject of apoptosis and autophagy are going to be critically important in the next generation of age reversal products that are coming to market. I was a speaker at RADFest this year, and you get some brilliant minds from around the world speaking at that conference. So it was really a privilege for me to have been invited this year. And, so the subject of senolytics and being able to remove dead cells is critically important to ultimately an age reversal strategy. And the easy way to understand this is that once cells die, if they're not eliminated and they hang around, then they're going to be they're going to act as a free radical and damage neighboring cells. And then this, in fact, can induce a autoimmune disorder. So removal of dead and damaged tissue is critically important. Now, the first strategy actually that I would recommend for people is fasting. It's very well known that fasting is a tried and true method of removing dead cells, of engaging autophagy. And it doesn't have to be anything too extreme. There are many different thoughts on this and studies, and there's some contradictory information, but generally speaking, intermittent fasting, I think, is the least severe and works very well. So eating within an 8-hour window, and then fasting for 16 hours. So that's a tool that's available today. Now, there are nutrients that are coming to light, such as fisetin, which seems to seems to promote autophagy. We'll have to see how the clinical studies bear out on that, but that looks very promising. And so fisetin is a phytonutrient that's found in vegetables. Now, with respect to X39, as to whether or not copper peptide will induce apoptosis or autophagy in cells, I'm not aware of any clinical studies that have been completed in that regard that would tell us that for certain. So I can't say definitively. Totally possible. I wouldn't rule it out, but it hasn't been clinically substantiated.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I want to say something, but I want to preface it with that I'm not making any diagnoses or anything like that. But I have to tell you, I have seen such a wide variety of things get better very quickly that it makes me think that this X39 and these other patches, that there isn't any aspect of healthcare that cannot benefit from this. And when you put that in the context of the health of our community, the health of our state, the health of we have the possibility of decreasing our healthcare costs by just simply healing things. And I want to put that out there to everybody on this call, the doctors on this call, the medical doctors, the chiropractors. You can implement these in your practice really quickly. We've already shown lots of doctors how to do it. It's not a this or that. Is if you do stem cell injections, add this to your protocols, and you'll get better results. If you're a chiropractor, your patients need to hold their adjustments. You're going to get more referrals if they do. Get them on the patch. It helps repair collagen. Everybody on this call needs to get the magnitude of what we have, and I think everybody does. And we have a bunch of people who care about people and light workers and energy workers, and we truly have the possibility of changing healthcare and cutting all of our costs down.